Seattle wins the 1919 Stanley Cup. Let's go, baby. Woo! All this talk of, oh, Vegas went to the Cup in their first season as a team, and there's no way Seattle's going to get there in their first season. But 7 games into the year, and we already have a Stanley Cup victory. But what names are they going to put on the Cup? I mean, it is 2 different teams stretched over an entire century, but I mean, I guess back in 1919, they didn't really put names on the Cup, so maybe they'll just cross off the Montreal Canadiens and just leave it as Seattle Metropolitans Cup winners. Who cares? Sorry, 1 second. What was that? Really? That's a bummer. So, apparently I'm being told that that's not quite how it works. Seattle doesn't get to retroactively call this as Game 5 of the 1919 Stanley Cup and claim victory. But either way, the Kraken do win their first home game in franchise history against the Montreal Canadiens 5-1. And it does come on a night where they do raise a Stanley Cup banner, this time for the 1917 Seattle Metropolitans. And no, this isn't the Kraken laying claim to the Seattle Metropolitans' history from over a century ago. It's just them recognizing the history of hockey in Seattle, even if it has taken, again, 104 years since Seattle won a Stanley Cup for them to finally get an NHL team. And for the Kraken, and in this case more so Seattle hockey fans, this is now 2 banners that they've put in the rafters in 2 home games. So what banner do they put out on Thursday? Maybe it's the 1919 Stanley Cup. Nope, wait. We decided that the Kraken don't get to claim that just because they win Game 5 a century later. Oh well. But even still, that was one of the main storylines coming into this game. The fact that 102 years later, this was the first time that the Montreal Canadiens were coming to play a professional team in Seattle since that 1919 Stanley Cup was called short due to the Spanish flu. And if you want to know more about that series and what led to the Canadiens and Seattle Metropolitans at the time calling it quits, I did actually make a video about that about a year ago, so I'll leave a link to that down in the description, and there'll probably be some sort of link going on up above. And especially if you are into the history of the game, it is a pretty interesting, though ultimately tragic story that is still important to the history of the Stanley Cup, as that was the only series that has ever been started, but not finished for the Stanley Cup. So again, worth checking out. But coming back to the 21st century and the Canadiens versus the Kraken, this is definitely not the start to a season that either one of these teams envisioned coming into the year, with the Canadiens having a 1-5 record, with those 5 losses really not being particularly pretty. Well, the Kraken started off a little bit slow with a road trip that didn't really go their way, having a 1-4-1 record after having lost their home opener to the Canucks. That said, both teams were coming into this game with some hope that things were starting to turn around. The Habs were coming off of their first and so far only win of the season, a 6-1 victory over the Red Wings on Saturday, while the Kraken, even though they had lost their previous game to Vancouver, they did look like the better team for the majority of it, and even according to the coach, and I think he was right, it was their best full game of hockey that they had played to this point in the season. So, which team would end up carrying that momentum into this game? Well, early on, it seemed like it was going to be the Kraken, as a minute into the game, it's Wennberg breaking into the offensive zone, who drops it back for Eberle, crossing from left to right behind him, finds some open ice, shoots, and scores to make it 1-0 Kraken. And for Eberle, it's a much-needed first goal in a Seattle uniform, as during the road trip, he had been robbed right in front of the net in each and every one of the games the Kraken played. So it's a big sigh of relief for him and the jolt of energy that the team needs to start off this game. Even after that early goal though, Seattle really isn't able to capture all that much distinctive momentum, as play is pretty back and forth through the first half of the first period. But then, about halfway through the first period, it's Hoffman breaking into the offensive zone for the Habs, who has a beautiful pass across Grubauer's face to Gallagher on the other side, who shoots it, and it's saved by Grubauer, an absolute beauty as he does the splits, getting back to the other side to rob Gallagher of potentially his first goal of the season. And it really is more after that save by Grubauer that Seattle starts to take a little bit more control of this game and get some good chances off on Allen, but he is up to the task, and unfortunately for Seattle, the next time the scoreboard would change, it would be in Montreal's favor, as coming the other way, one of the few chances that Montreal had in the second half of the first period is a weird bounce off of the end boards that seems to catch most of the players by surprise. Unfortunately, it finds Suzuki's stick, who gets it over to Hoffman and is able to put it in. It's now tied up 1-1. And again, like many of the goals that have been scored against the Kraken so far to this point in their season, it really is hard to put this too much on Grubauer. Unlike a number of the goals, however, to this point, it really isn't that much on the defense either. This is just kind of a few weird bounces that happen to find Habs sticks rather than Kraken sticks. And while the Habs do score from right in front of the net, it's not because there weren't Kraken players there to try and shut it down. In fact, one of the Kraken players that is there to try and shut it down is Jaden Schwartz, who does try to lift Hoffman's stick before he can get the shot off. Unfortunately, he misses the stick entirely and ends up getting caught for a high sticking as Hoffman's putting it into the net. So not only is the game now tied 1-1, but the Habs are going on to a power play, which originally was called as a 4-minute double minor, but was on review taken down to just a single 2-minute minor. The good news for the Kraken, though, is that their penalty kill has been one of the few consistent bright spots for the team so far in the early part of this season, and that continues to be true here as they're able to kill this one off. Though, to be fair, this time it is coming against a Habs power play that is all but the worst in the league to this point. Either way, it stays 1-1 through the power play, and then with 5 minutes left in the first period, a rebound off of Grubauer this time finds a Kraken stick rather than an opponent's stick. It's McCann who carries it into the offensive zone on a partial break, but does get cut off. Fortunately, he's able to dump it to Alexiak coming along the boards, who finds Tanev skating right in front of the net, puts it off Tanev's stick, and it's into the net to make it 2-1 Kraken. And if it wasn't the Grubauer save that got things rolling in the Kraken's direction in this game, then it definitely was this goal from Tanev. As for the remainder of the first period, they really pretty much control play the rest of the way, even through a power play that doesn't end up seeing a goal go in, though Sheahan does get a pretty good chance off of a nice individual play. Ultimately, it gets partially blocked and then turns into just a reminder that the puck is made out of rubber, as this one bounces and weirdly hops its way through a number of different Habs players, including Allen, but hits the crossbar instead of going in, and the Habs escape just barely from a 3-1 deficit going into the first break. And then starting the second period, once again, just like with the start of the first period, this time within the first minute of play, Eberle has a grade A scoring chance in front of the goal on a beautiful pass from McCann. But the front of the goal really does not seem to be Eberle's friend, as Allen makes a beautiful save on this one. And we do stay still 2-1 Kraken as we get into the meat of the second period. And for Eberle, although he did get that first goal out of the way in the first period, this is an all too familiar feeling for him after that road trip, and it would not be the last time that he would get robbed net front in this game. So he might not be out of the woods just yet when it comes to that net front puck luck. And then 7 minutes into the period, a sloppy play transitioning from the neutral zone into the offensive zone for the Habs leads to a turnover that finds Jaden Schwartz's stick, who gets it to Gord going the other way into the Habs defensive zone, pretty much all alone, and he's desperately looking for a pass. He's looking and looking, trying to find someone to cross it to. Eventually, the pass is taken away by a diving Canadiens player, and Gord says, what the heck, I'll do it myself, and goes forehand, backhand around Allen and into the net. It's 3-1 Kraken on a beautiful deke around Allen from Gord to get him his first goal as a Seattle Kraken. And at this point, it's pretty much all Kraken, which is proved 2 minutes later when a puck dumped into the Seattle end of the ice by the Habs looking for a change is collected by Grubauer, who gets it quickly to Gio, who once again finds a Gord wide open on the Habs blue line. Once again, Gord is looking for a pass, he's looking for a pass, and this time he finds one in Tanev, who somehow got left all alone behind the Habs defense, And one-on-one against Allen, he's able to beat him going under Allen's leg to make it 4-1 Kraken. And for Tanev, it's his second 2-goal game for Seattle, his 5th goal of the season already in 7 games. And I'm not saying that Tanev is a Connor McDavid or anything like that, but he is leading an NHL franchise in career goals scored, which is not something that McDavid can say. Even with his 13 points in 5 games. Oh gosh, that guy's going to be a problem when we play him. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, let's get back to this game where the Kraken are up 4-1. And for his part, Jake Allen really didn't look that bad for most of this game and made a number of pretty big saves. Now, yes, you could definitely argue that he probably could have had the second Tanev goal and definitely did overcommit a little bit on the Gord goal, but still he was put in a lot of bad positions by a pretty porous Habs defense, which is definitely something that we were more used to seeing from the Kraken during the road trip, so it was nice to see what that looks like on the other side of the ice. But this game definitely could have been a lot worse than 5-1, even with Grubauer making some good saves of his own on the other end. And that was proven as the Kraken continued to lay on pressure after the second Tanev goal. And Allen absolutely robbed Yanni Gourde of a beautiful shot on a nice pass, which would have been Gourde's second of the game. We do, though, go to the end of the second period and the start of the third, with the Kraken still leading 4-1, which is also the first time the franchise is led by 3 goals in any game. So for the Kraken, the big question here was, coming into the third period, would they go into that turtle mode, having the lead at the start, much like they did in Nashville and Columbus? Well, it was clear pretty early on that the answer to that was going to be no, even though this time it was a 3-goal lead and in those games it was a 1-goal lead. Either way, they kept the pressure on, and once again, it was Eberle with the early chance in the third. And once again, at the doorstep of the goal, this time with multiple chances, Allen robbed him 3 different times, keeping Eberle from his second goal of the game, and for Allen once again doing his absolute best to not make this one as ugly as it really could have been for Montreal. Now, I will say that while the Kraken didn't go fully into turtle mode with a third period lead here like they did during the road trip and come all the way off the gas, they maybe did take their foot off the gas just a little bit. But we're still in position to take advantage of Montreal mistakes, which Donato, who was in for an injured Appleton during the second period, was all too happy to do, getting himself on a breakaway, and once again a one-on-one with Allen leads to another Kraken goal. It's 5-1 Seattle. And for Donato, his first goal since that opener, the first goal in franchise history back in Vegas, which had to feel pretty good for him as he's been somewhat in and out of the lineup since then. And from there, the rest of the third period is relatively uneventful. The Kraken take care of business the rest of the way, and this one ends 5-1 once again to get that first home win in franchise history, improving their record to 2-4-1. And more importantly for Seattle, well, like we said with the Vancouver game, that probably was their most complete 60 minutes of hockey, even if it did end up in a loss. They come out in this one, play even better than they did against Vancouver. Still a very complete game start to finish. They look the best they've looked all season, and it shows on the scoreboard. As for the 3 stars of the game, for the first time in franchise history, it's all Kraken here, with Tanev getting the first star, Grubauer getting the second, and Oleksiak getting the third. Once again, this is definitely the most complete game the Kraken have played to this point in every aspect of the game. Really, the only part where things probably could have gone a little bit better was with the power play. The first one really never managed to get much of anything going. The second one, they do eventually start to get some chances, but it really hasn't looked like the power play did early on in the season, where they were able to create multiple chances per power play. I mean, there's definitely also the downside of the Appleton injury, which we don't know what that is just yet, but he did go down grabbing his lower leg, which got landed on by a Montreal player, so definitely hoping he can make a quick recovery, or more so that he's not that badly injured and can come back quickly for the Kraken. Either way, with Appleton out, fortunately, the strength of this team is depth, so that's a place where Donato can step in his stead. Even still, though, if Appleton does miss some time, it's really unfortunate timing for him, as I thought that he's looked really good for the last couple of games for Seattle, especially on the defensive end of the ice, where he's maybe been one of the better defensive forwards that the Kraken have had over at least the last 2 games. And to his credit, while he hasn't really made much of a difference to this point on the scoreboard, he really has had a couple of chances, especially in that Vancouver game, that probably should have gotten him on there. One with a beautiful pass to Bastian that he ends up whiffing on that doesn't go into the net, and then of course the one that he just gets through Demko's legs, but Demko's able to get a glove on it leaning backwards before it can cross the line. So for Appleton, I think it was starting to come, and hopefully this doesn't turn into any kind of a long-term injury that derails that for him. But there are plenty of bright spots from this game as well, one of them obviously being that first star in Tanev, who continues to prove himself as the heartbeat or energy of this team. This guy really just continues to prove more and more why he was the perfect pick by the Kraken from the Pittsburgh Penguins back in the expansion draft, where they also, depending on how you look at it, got McCann from, but still, the Tanev pick was definitely a good one and has worked out really well to this point. Even if the scoring pace does slow down a little bit, he has been invaluable in a number of different ways as well, especially the physical aspect of the game and with his speed. The other guy, though, that really made a huge difference in this game and continues to make a massive difference every time he's on the ice for the Kraken that was left off of those 3 stars is Yanni Gourde. Now, I mean, I don't know what else I can say about this guy. We were definitely worried about the Kraken not having a legitimate first-line center, but with Gourde, honestly, he's showing that, well, he's not going to be a Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon or anything like that. He still can be a legitimate option in that center spot on the first line and can definitely make some plays happen and already has really improved this team since he stepped on the ice for them. It continues to baffle me how this man was somehow a third line player for the Lightning. Man, that team was stacked. But with that said, even though I'm sure that I'm missing something that I'm going to wish that I had mentioned after the fact, we have already done a stream for this game and now recording for this before I go to bed and still have to edit tomorrow, so I think we'll call this one here. If you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below. Again, if you're curious, please do check out that 1919 Stanley Cup history video that I made earlier. It's a little bit on the slower end. It was when I was a little bit newer to making videos, but still I think it's a pretty good one. Otherwise, I'll see you in the comments section, and until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and go Kraken.